Welcome to the Claws YouTube channel.
Together, we strive for a safer, secure, and more stable world.
Welcome to yet another episode of Claw's YouTube channel, Strategic Frontlines. Today we have with us Rear Admiral Monty Khanna, retired. He was the commandant of the Naval War College and he is the expert of Indo-Pacific region. We have a Group Captain Dr. Ajay Lele, retired, and he is the Deputy Director General of IDSA and he is specialist in space technology and strategic technologies. We also have Major General RPS Bhaduria, VSM, retired. He's the Additional Director General at CLAWS and is an expert on counterterrorism. I welcome all of you to this podcast. And before we start the podcast, I would like to pay our condolences to the families who have lost their loved ones in this very sad accident which happened today. We will now start with the topic today. What we are going to discuss is the changing character of war. Last few years have seen volatility, which is suggestive of significant indicators that the character of war is changing, and which also questions whether the traditional warfare is going to change now. However, this is not a new phenomenon because over the years, we find the character of war has changed. However, the key constant driver or the determinant for this change has been the innovation of the technology. In the past, we had the artillery, the air power, the nuclear explosions, all these changing the character of the warfare. And now we find that the hypersonics, the autonomous systems, all have made noteworthy impact. So we can say that if the war is shaped by tactics, then tactics to some extent is the product of technology. So I would start with asking General Bhaduria, how has the character of war changed in the land domain, especially with the niche technologies coming up? I know that robotics has become a transformative tool and it will impact by creating human robots and things like that. But what are the other areas which you find has changed? Your views.
Right. Thank you, ma'am. So let me begin by saying that the fundamental nature of war was always use of violence to achieve the political aim. It is the character, which means the way the warfare is conducted, which keeps changing depending on the RMAs, that is revolution in the military affairs, newer technologies coming, political aims changing, societal reasons, or even cultural reasons. So that is what changes actually. And to begin with, my first point would be about the technology. Now, technology, the pace of change of the technology we are witnessing now, it's at a very, very fast pace, right? So that is what is changing the character of war very rapidly. And drones and other things, I leave it to the others experts to cover. I wish to highlight the use of AI in now the warfare. And so, what has AI done? What AI has done is that it has shortened the OODA loop. That means the decisions are being made at a much faster pace in the battlefield, whether it is at tactical level, operational level, or even at strategic level. So earlier, the commanders used to say that what's going on, they would analyze it, and then they would come up with what can I do, various options, choose those options. Now that kind of a luxury is not there. Things are happening at a very fast pace. So therefore, sometimes the leaders are not able to think through because your sensors, your means of delivery, your ammunition, everything is linked. So it can just fire, right? So those are the things that are changing, and we have to be mindful of it, that it should not lead to something unintended. Now, the next point is that the warfares have now become multi-domain. Uh, Earlier, it was all land, sea, and air. However, the newer aspects, because of the technology like cyber, space, electromagnetic, these have been added. And along with that, other traditional means of kind of warfare like economic, diplomatic, and things like that. So now it is becoming a total war. In case I can say, multi-domain warfare is some kind of a total war. I mean, we saw it during our little action against Pakistan for against the terrorism. We saw that we use certain diplomatic tools and even IWT, the Indus Water Treaty, very early in the tensions, right? So those kind of things are coming. And my next point is the transparency and complexity of the warfare is now changing at a very rapid pace. Now, transparency, because we all know satellite communication, the sensors, the network surveillance has all changed, made the battlefield very transparent. Earlier, like I am from infantry, I've been on the line of actual control, and even against Pakistan, we would send out patrols. We could only see up to the hill in front of us. What was behind that hill, we were only guessing, right? We will send out patrols. They would take time to give us information, right? We would be very little of satellite communication. Even if we had, they took a lot of time coming to us. Now, what's happening? It is all happening in real time. So, therefore, we are seeing much deeper, and because we can see much deeper, we can hit them. So therefore, all this is having impact on our tactics. It is having impact on our operational art. The way we fight on the battlefield is undergoing tremendous change. So the commanders have to come up with very, very innovative ideas. Now, what has happened is innovation on the battlefield is something which we are seeing in Ukraine war also, even action against Hamas. Even in our case, lot of innovations are taking place while the conflict is on. It used to happen earlier also, but now it is happening at a much, much rapid pace. Now, because the battlefield are very transparent and they're very complex, so what's happening is it's becoming very difficult to achieve surprise and deception. So one has to be very imaginative as to how to surprise the enemy, how to deceive the enemy as to what we are going to do, right? So therefore, that is something which would tax our leadership and to come up with some very innovative ideas. So my next point is, and this is very true in our context also, as far as India Pakistan or even India China is concerned, that lot of urbanization is taking place on our line of control, or LAC or even LAC. So because of the urbanization, the densely populated areas or cities, towns have come up along the border. Now, what has it done? It has brought in a bit of caution on us, right? We cannot plan our operations where the civilians' casualties would be caused. So, reliance on PGMs, the precision guided munition, like what we did in, say, RYK, Rahimyar Khan, very precisely just hit that. Or even Mudir K, what we did was hit just the camp, nothing else. Chose the time very well. It was in the night when civilians are not out. And just that particular house was hit. So these are the challenges which the leaders will have to keep in mind, that we do not cause unintended civilian casualties because of the urbanization. Then asymmetric warfare. We always need to see that the trend for asymmetric warfare has come, but now it is real. Now, what we are witnessing is that even smaller countries with lesser resources are able to take on much powerful countries, right? For example, Ukraine and Russia. Russia is a huge, mighty military power. Ukraine, although it is backed by a whole of NATO and the US, but still the capacities were less in the initial stages. Their soldiers were less, but they could take on Russia. So that is one something which we are witnessing in the use of non-state actors. All Indians understand this very well. The way the non-state actors have been used by Pakistan. Then proxies. Actually, if you see, Ukraine is fighting a proxy war with Russia. So these are the trends which we are going to see. And proxy by wars by use of non-state actors is something what Pakistan has done, right? And my last point would be that now the modern warfare has gone beyond the battlefield. Now, this was demonstrated by Ukraine in these attacks which happened about a week back, spider web. So what they did was they struck very deep. So as a result, the battlefield has expanded. Now, what has this done to the Russians? It has caused a psychological impact on them, right? It has weaponized uncertainty. We don't know what is going to happen next and where it is going to happen. So these are the kind of things which we are witnessing as far as the character of war is concerned. So I'll stop here and wait for others to respond.
Thank you, General Baduria. And I'll pick up from what you left about the Russia-Ukraine war. So I would now like to ask Group Captain Lele, how has the autonomous system, mainly the drones and swarms, impacted conflict? Because starting from Armenia-Azerbaijan war, Yemen, Gaza, Russia-Ukraine conflict, I feel drones have played a major role, and especially the UAVs. And the recent Ukraine's attack with 117 drones known as the spider web, destroying Russia's 40 high-value aircraft, including strategic bombers, was shocking. And this opens a new Pandora's box. Not to mention that all our adversaries are developing. For example, the Chinese recently showed their super high altitude mothership UAV that was Julian in the recently, what you call it, air fare, what they have annually. So I want to ask you, how is this going to impact the character in the Air Force? This thing, your views, please.
Of the entire how the modern warfare is viewed at. So, if you really look at a modern warfare, he used a very interesting terminology called innovation. I think what we are seeing spider web is actually innovation because it's not only the use of drones. You first used trucks to carry those drones very close to the target. It is something like Trojan horse, which used to happen in a couple of decades, a couple of centuries back, rather. So the innovation has been a key element as far as modern day warfare is concerned, and drone systems are used very innovatively. You see, drone systems are existing for quite some time now. In fact, before First World War, also during 1980s, Spanish people, Austrian people, they all were using these types of systems in a very different fashion. They were putting explosives in the balloons and they were allowing those balloons to get bursted over their enemy area. So the concept of a drone is existing for quite some time. It has picked up quite amount of a pace, particularly after 1970s. Drones used to be first identified as a targets for your anti-aircraft grunts and all that. So people were investing into drone technologies just to have some sort of a target for your anti-aircraft systems to take a aim at to change their validities. But now, over a period of time, as you rightly mentioned, particularly in modern day warfare, it all started, one can say, with Armenia-Azerbaijan war. Armenians were totally taken by surprise by the type of a drone attack which Azerbaijan actually had launched. They had drones from various sources, particularly from Turkish drones, so is countries like Pakistan are having. And they first ensured that whatever little air defense infrastructure which Armenia was having, whether in terms of S-300 or various other systems which were available over there, they first used drones into that mode. What we call as a suppression of enemy air defense, the drones were used very beautifully over there. And drone is not only an attack weapon. Drones are used for surveillance purposes, for intelligence gathering, and many other purposes also. So in warfare, if one can see, drones are becoming famous for only attack mode, but there are various other usages of drone which have been coolly done by various countries. So whatever form of intelligence gathering mechanisms have been there for all these years, drone is adding a plus value to that. That's the way drone has been used. As you pointed out, even Saudi Arabia was attacked by drones by Houthis. Then in Gaza Strip also we are seeing it. Particularly Ukraine war, I think there is tremendous amount of a usage of a drone which is happening. And particularly from Ukraine side, most of the say Israel made or other basically drones which are in the inventory of NATO's are getting used, while Russia is using Iran made drones. So there are a lot of structures which are there, which are coming out in open, that which are the countries which are investing into these technologies, how these technologies have evolved over a period of time. So as far as air warfare is concerned, I think it has given a flip to a new sort of a warfare. But that doesn't mean that drones will replace the entire structures of the air power. I think entire structures of air power are difficult to replace at this point in time. As it was rightly pointed out, you got beyond visual range weapons, you got PGMs and other sorts of weapons. The concept of crossing the borders and hitting the enemy in a classical air battle may not be there now. You can stay within your own borders and actually do a air attack onto your enemy sites. Then again, one can say that it's not only the air warfare. You have got certain land elements also. We all know that how BrahMos were perfectly used in the problem with Op Sindoor. So that's the way the technology is evolving. Subsequently, various other technologies are there. We will talk about them over a period of time when we are taking this discussion further. Particularly today, we are in the era where it's not only a air battle, land battle, or a battle in the oceans. It's a battle in cyber domain. It's a battle in space. In fact, now people are talking of even quantum as a form of a emerging sort of a warfare. So people are saying that future could be a quantum warfare also. So there are, as the technology evolves over a period of time, the way AI is evolving, I think the conservative way of fighting wars is no longer going to be there. Even as far as nuclear warfare is concerned, yes, your nuclear bombs will be of the same Second World War vintage. But the entire nuclear architecture, particularly from your nuclear triad point of view, is doing a rapid change because there are various innovative technologies which are coming up.
Uh, you rightly pointed out that certain aspects of the air domain. Now, going to Admiral Montikana, we would also like to discuss the naval domain. So, how are the UUVs going to be impacting the naval warfare? We know that the underwater drones are being used for mine countermeasures or for ISR purposes. But my question is, will they play a role in monitoring, detecting, tracking submarines? Will it impact the deterrence because submarines are considered the survival leg of the nuclear triad? For example, Russia's Poseidon is a nuclear UUV and can be used with the Belgorod submarine. The Chinese are also developing extra large UUVs, and their UUV 300 family is there. So, I would also like to mention here that the US Project 33 aims to connect crewed and uncrewed vessels into unified networks for a large maritime unmanned system exercises. So, are we also going to do something similar? Because we are finding that most of the countries, they are trying to make the crewed with the uncrewed and have those exercises. So, how are we placed in this domain?
So coming to your first question was that, are UUV especially likely to play a major role in future warfare, particularly in the undersea domain? So your first requirement in the undersea domain is detection. Your underwater domain awareness, or UDA, is a critical requirement. And considering the spaces, considering the vast spaces that have to be sort of monitored, and also that you're using only acoustics, and acoustics have got limited range, it is a complex problem that you have on your hands. UUVs and unmanned assets are critical, I would say, for developing underwater domain awareness. These days, you have a range of them, starting from small ones, which are sea gliders, which use buoyancy engines to go up and down, looking out for acoustic data, measuring hydrological data, and every time they surface, they dump this data. On the other end of the spectrum, you have XL UUVs, which are these large, platforms which can be out at sea for several days together. Some of them with snorkeling systems. The Boeing Orca, for example, can be out for 2 to 3 months. It can recharge its batteries and do whatever it requires to. So these are going to be critical, I would say, because manned assets are simply not going to be enough, and you cannot scale manned assets the way you can scale unmanned assets to develop a comprehensive picture to understand what is happening in the underwater domain. So in that sense, even I would say you don't only require UUVs, but USVs also. The US, for example, is doing something what they call I think it's called the Triton, if I'm not mistaken, the Sea Hunter, where you have a trimaran sort of vessel. You queue it to a place where you detect a submarine. It's got high definition sonar. It locks onto that submarine, and thereafter it trails the submarine. It's called continuous trail. Continuous trail. So they trail the submarine wherever it is, so you have a reasonable idea where that submarine is at all times. So it's a complex domain. Manned submarines are going to be few and far in between. The only way you can scale this issue is go unmanned, and you have it in all domains. You can start with the cheaper sea gliders, which you can build in your hundreds, to the more expensive XL UUVs, which you have much fewer numbers, to develop some sort of comprehensive UDA. Once you have a clearer picture of what's happening subsurface, then starts the prosecution. For prosecution, I agree that might require human intervention. So there you might need a manned unmanned sort of a way to go about it. But certainly for the surveillance part, you can go totally unmanned.
Okay, moving forward, the thing is, we know that the current warfare is going to be a multi-domain warfare, as General Bhaduria also pointed out. So I would like to ask Group Captain Lele that uh, space and cyber are going to play a major role, and especially space is the backbone of modern warfare and a force multiplier. So how are we placed as far as our own GPS systems are concerned? And considering that real-time data is significant tool, which General Bhaduria also mentioned, for which we required hundreds of satellites. And recently, our ISRO chief, Mr. Somnath, also stated that we should have a lot of satellites. So how are we going to achieve this? Because if we see our adversary, the China, they have their Baidu system, and I'm sure Pakistan is going to have full access to the Baidu system. So how are we going to progress in this sector? Your views?
That China is having one of the best global navigational systems right now called Baidu, or in English they call it Compass. And Pakistan is the only country which is getting a military grade signal for that. So Pakistan navigational issues have been taken care of by China. As far as India is concerned, India has got two-pronged approach. One is that we are depending on GPS. Other thing is that we have got our own constellation called Navik, and that constellation has got a very good, one can say, facilities as far as military aspects are concerned. So India is taken care by its own constellation. There are certain issues with Navik systems, but I'm sure over a period of time they will be sorted out. So we will have a regional navigational system which is already functional, but functional for the military purposes as and when the requirements are there. You also said that space is a force multiplier, and I would like to take that point further. Because right now space has to be looked at in 2 to 3 dimensions. One dimension is that space as a force multiplier. That means you are using space assets to ensure that your army, navy, and air force are getting good intelligence. If we go back to 1991 Gulf War, we all were able to see this Gulf War in our drawing rooms, essentially because of communication technologies, essentially because of remote sensing technologies, essentially because of a GPS and various other technologies. So now in real time, we can see all sorts of warfares which are happening. That means today, for troops on the ground also, in a real-time connectivity is possible with the commanders also to take that decision. So in a couple of years back, one can say that there was certain amount of a decision dilemma for the troops on the ground, but that sort of a decision dilemma should no longer exist, because now you are directly connected with your higher superior also in that domain. Other in war, there is a lot amount of a talk which is happening about privatization of a space, because what you said is that you require tremendous number of satellites, as it was pointed out by ex-chairman ISRO. And if you see the entire idea conceptualization by Donald Trump of a golden dome system, where again it actually emphasizes that if you want to have a secured missile defense system, then you require not one, two, you require hundreds of satellites out into the space. And that's what Mr. Somarantha also was indicating at it. So if tomorrow India wants to ensure that or we will have a good missile defense system, then it's not only S-400 or a US system like THAAD and all that. You will require to establish your own missile defense architecture, and that will only depend on how many number of satellites you can put into the space. So these are very important, and these are very critical requirements as the domain of a space is concerned. Then we are talking of a space not only as a force multiplier, but the other aspect of a space is that people are talking of fighting wars into the space. Now, particularly with a conceptualization of ideas like Golden Dome, actually he is working, taking forward the ideas which were put forward by in 1983 by Ronald Reagan of Strategic Defense Initiative, or SDI, which is a very famous speech which he gave, and subsequently people started making investments into these technologies. So the moment you start making so much amount of investments in these technologies, already China and Russia has raised concerns about Golden Dome. So the concept of a space warfare, which was considered more as a theoretical concept, may become practical because of tremendous amount of investments which are going to happen into the space. So as far as future of space is concerned, yes, there are challenges because of the nature of a warfare, which may lead to the fourth dimension of a war. At the same time, you will have tremendous amount of advantages also because of the space technologies which are available. Because modern day space technologies, the remote sensing technologies, what is known as the spy satellites and all that, they give you very tremendous amount of advantage as far as intelligence gathering is concerned. Modern day satellites can have submetric or even in few centimeters resolutions also. So identifying a target again by using your GPS systems to reach to the exact target. You got bombs also which are now GPS guided, like you got joint direct attack munitions and all that. So everything now, if you see, as far as modern day warfare is concerned, everything is depending on a space to fight a war also, and to have or raise the envelope of the war into the space domain also. So space is emerging as the most critical element into it, and the moment something becomes so critical, definitely the adversaries also will like to have certain amount of advantage by allowing not to have that sort of a advantage which your space systems are giving. And that's why I'll slightly take a 1 minute over here, that China in recent times has come out with a separate structure, because they got a rocket force, everybody knows, but now they have come out with a structure of, as a near space command. You all must be remembering that some months back they were sending balloons here and there and all that. So now they are looking at a structures above, say, stratosphere until around 200 kilometers above the Earth's surface. In that area, they want to operate. Because today also to launch a satellite on demand is an extremely difficult proposal. So if you can have blimps, balloons, satellites, these are the types of near space systems, then it can actually serve the purpose of a satellites also. Also, this structure they are going to use for their hypersonic weapons also. So it's very interesting as far as technology development is concerned in the space domain and a near space domain.
Absolutely. And what you said about Chinese development, it's amazing how they are doing it. And we not only want to develop a space system with number of satellites, but we also have to develop an anti satellite systems also. We have already done the tests, so we also need to look into that area. Now, this brings me to Admiral Khanna. Do you feel that during Ops Sindoor, we were able to have a real-time integration of space and cyber with all three domains, whether it was air, sea, and land? And I also want to ask you that are we equipped to address the challenge from our other adversary, that is China, considering now there is going to be a hybridization of conflict where there will be blending of conventional and unconventional tactics. And considering that China is adept in information, gray zone, and asymmetric warfare, so are we ready for an integrated response across various domains? Your views, please.
To give a definitive answer for. But I would think we would be better placed. You've got capabilities. We've got capabilities in all our domains. If you take land, sea, air, space, cyber, electronic warfare, information warfare, all of them. But I think we have a structural deficit. If you want to apply these vectors in a well choreographed manner, you need someone who is going to sequence and phase them in such a manner that the summation of these effects is greater than than just the sum, but there is a multiplier. And that multiplier can only come if you have a headmaster in the form of a, a theater commander or integrated, commander who can apply these in a well choreographed manner. And I think in the absence of that, we will not be, optimizing the capabilities that we have. So in that sense, most countries have moved well ahead, and we seem to be lagging behind insofar as integration goes. And so structure is required. We can keep saying that, we manage, we are got good relations amongst the services, but this friendship, this is just grease. It cannot be the edifice. It cannot be the gear wheel. That gear wheel has to be a structure, and that can only come in a very formalized structure, like a theaterized setup. So I would think that is certainly is something that if we go down that path, it is combat power for free. You're not investing into any new capabilities. It's only in the application of these capabilities you're doing it in a much more cohesive and structured manner.
You spoke about theaterization. So my next question is to General Baduria. You had also spoken about the gray zone warfare. So I also want to ask you two questions. Firstly, the gray zone warfare, how are they going to use the niche technologies, the innovations which are taking place? And also, we find that the speed of information has grown, and it is impacting public perception and military operation. So, info and psychological warfare have become central to shaping outcomes. So, how do we need to change this domain? Do you feel that we need to have a national security doctrine kind of a thing that integrates all these important instruments? And also, if you can also show some light on the theaterization, what Admiral Montikana was talking about. Your views, please. You need to unmute your mic, General Baduria.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. So, firstly, I will agree with Monty that we need structures at the higher level to orchestrate everything that we are doing and sequence them, which gives us the better result and the effect. Now, here, I would like to highlight that there's a requirement of having a national wargaming center. Now, this has been felt for a very long time within the services for sure, but the other agencies and other tools of the government also needs to now chip in. And there was a project which was undertaken by DRDO and the think tank, defense think tank, as part of that project, which was Project Giant, where we made a computerized war game at the theater level, and other elements of the this thing were also uh, um, hooked onto it. And then we would war game and see how the thing is going to play out. And as luck would have it, it was done on the for the Western Front, and things have unfolded in the similar manner. There's a proposal that clause is sent to the people who matter, and I'm sure this would be looked at very closely, because this is something which is need of the hour. We cannot at that point in time be kind of wasting time in coming up with options. They have to be all there and war game and outcomes known to a great extent. Then the red teaming also factors in, so that we are very up and about with whatever we have to do. And that is because, like you said, the information is available, and a lot of things are happening at a very rapid pace. So the time has come for that kind of a thing, a national wargaming center. The other point is the now the national security, right? That particular document, we have been saying that India has done well without a written document, and see the outcomes in all the wars or crisis situation, we have come out far better. And I do not, and people say that we do not need a written document, and there is something existing, so people are, I think that those days are gone now, because it is a total war, like I said. And every instrument of the government, even the society, and even your industry. Everyone is involved in this venture, or called waging a war against your adversary. So they must know what your security doctrine is. How can they be shaping it? How can they be helping in getting a better outcome? So therefore, national security doctrine is now a must, like all the developed nations, and who have very major military power, they have all put it out. And I think it's time now India does that. Prime Minister Modi, during Operation Sindoor, very candidly and very clearly enunciated whatever is our strategy and policy against terrorism. But this has to be now taken forward and enunciated in case of other threats also. And here I would point out the gray zone operations that you mentioned. Gray zone operations, like in the army, we used to describe it as a no or no peace, in the context of both LOC and LAC, where we are doing actions, neither there is peace nor war, and now that is being termed as hybrid warfare, gray zone operations, things like that. With China, for sure, there is a term that is being used increasingly, is armed coexistence, that we would have Galwan type of actions, but they will not escalate further. That's what the analysis is, right? I hope it stays. Right. So here what is happening is that a lot of deniability is factored in, and China is master at it. Now, I would give you an example of the LAC, where I have extensive practical experience. The kind of patrolling and what they are doing on the LAC. There is a term called salami slicing. People are saying it is creeping assertiveness. So, what are they doing with this? They are creating new facts on ground. So, whenever the negotiations take place, they would justify that, look, we have been coming to this place all this while. And just to give a personal example, I was posted on the LAC. I was at that time I was commanding a brigade. So when I changed, and we had some issue, and there was a border personnel meeting with the Chinese counterpart. First thing he said that, look, brigadier, you have come here new, right? I have been here for last 25, 28 years. So their record keeping was very good, and he would narrate that we did this, we did that, like that. So fortunately, which was not known to him, I had been in that sector every 5, 7, 8 years. So, right, without saying so, I could say, no, this is not true, or that is not true. So what I'm trying to say is, this is the kind of strategy, tactics, whatever you want to call it, against PLA we'll have to deal with. So Indian Army, and I'm sure the other services, will also have to be dealing with this. And they have taken out the land border agreement of 2021. So what is it doing? It is legalizing PLA operations on the disputed areas. Likewise, they did it in the maritime domain in South China Sea, maritime law enforcement and militia, the use of militia. So they are using the legal provisions, that legally this part of their three warfare strategy, the legal aspects. So whatever they are doing is backed by their national laws. So that makes their case even stronger. So we'll have to deal with these kind of things. I can go on and on, but my last thing would be that even we'll have to be conscious of the fact that China changes the names very quickly, or they like in Arunachal Pradesh, when they are having their map shown, whatever names that we have, like Taiwan, it is named differently by Chinese. So very small things, but they are doing it. So trying to tell the public and the world that, look, these have been our places all this while. We have to be mindful of this. We also have to use this thing and be active in this particular field. So this is as far as the gray zone warfare against China is concerned.
You rightly pointed out, Jalal Buduri, about the Chinese legal warfare, psychological warfare, all those three warfare strategy. It's very potent. So I would just like to bring here Group Captain Lele. I want to ask you, how is the cyber warfare? That is also a very important domain. So how are we placed as far as the cyber is concerned, both defensive as well as attacking kind of a thing? How are we placed in that domain?
I think today, when we look at a cyber warfare, we have to look at it in a very different perspective, because most of the recent wars which have happened, just before the war, the cyber attack starts. So usually, one can say that before starting of any major conflict or even a war-like situation, always there is first testing the ground by using cyber things. If you really look at it, cyber is a all-pervasive domain. It's not necessary that only armed forces should use it. There are various actors which are non-state actors who are also doing it. Just for the sake of example, after Article 370 was removed, there was tremendous amount of cyber attacks which were happening, and all these attacks are not essentially to destroy your cyber systems or to jam your systems or something. It is again a game of a perception management, fake narratives, so on and so forth. So the domain of a cyber is a very different domain now. It's not a very classical form of a warfare that I attack your websites, you attack my websites. People are going sitting in somebody else's website. Idea is not to attack the website but start collecting the data. If you see historically in the year 2007, the cyber conflict, actually one can say that a small state like Estonia was attacked, and it was made totally, what you can say, means everything had fallen apart for some time till they were able to have a plan B in place. Russia is doing pretty well as far as these things are concerned. In Georgia, also, right from 2009 onwards, they have been using cyber means on multiple times. If you take the case of a Ukraine war during, if I'm not wrong, 2015 or something, they have launched an attack on their power grid. So almost for 5 to 6 hours, more than 2.5 lakh population was not there, was not having any sort of electricity also. So cyber means is a very different means. Every country uses it based on their requirements. Just a small case in point over here is that couple of years back, Sony had come out with a movie called The Independence or something, which was against the ruler of North Korea, Kim. So North Korea said that if you're not going to take this movie down, we are going to attack you. And they actually launched a cyber attack on the entire infrastructure of that movie establishment. So cyber is both a wartime mechanism as well as a peacetime mechanism. The mechanism is used not only for disabling or destroying the websites of the enemy countries, it is also used for collection of data, it is also used for perceptions management, and more importantly, in the era of AI, it is used for the fake narratives. Because today, whatever you see on in a website or on a YouTube, people start believing it, and most of the things which are available over here are actually the fake narratives. You can merge the images, you can do many things with this. So cyber has become, I can say that cyber has not crippled any country so far 100%, but yes, if somebody's power lines have been attacked, tomorrow somebody's nuclear establishment also can be attacked. You know the case of a Stuxnet which happened in the case of Iran a couple of years back. So cyber has become very dangerous domain, and as a country, I think we understand those things. You had agencies which are looking at it both from an offensive point of view and majorly from a defensive point of view also. So things are happening. Usually, nobody talks about it in open domain as far as your cyber preparations are there.
I would like to bring in here Admiral Montikana. A lot is being talked about the gray zone warfare of China in the naval domain, their military militia, how they are using the fishing boats, the coast guards. So they're using it in the South China Sea. Do we see it in the Indian Ocean region also? And what do you make of it? Your views, please. Admiral Khanna, you need to unmute your mic.
Yeah. China at times follows what they call a cabot strategy, where for any event, for any event in the maritime sphere, you have three different forces. So the first to be used normally is the maritime militia because you have a certain amount of deniability. Essentially, they are fishermen who have been given some government tasking. So if, for example, in the South China Sea, if there's a US acoustic gathering ship which has got its arrays streamed behind it, you might have a fishing boat that goes and cuts off its arrays, something like that. Yeah. You had the USS Bowditch incident, which was operating a UUV. A fishing boat went and picked it up. So there are incidences like this that occur. The second layer, of course, is the Coast Guard, which is hovering around, which comes in case, the situation sort of escalates. And the third layer are the gray hulls or the PLA Navy, which is, the third and final layer, and their intervention only comes when the situation gets much worse. So they've been quite successful in this. Even General Baduria mentioned the same thing about this iterative accrual of advantage. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. But every time, either, whenever a crisis presents itself or you create a crisis where you arrive at a fresh status quo, which is always incrementally better than the last status quo. So you're changing facts on ground, over, a constant effort that you're making, where finally you find that the South China Sea is a very different place than it was maybe around a couple of decades ago. Insofar as the Indian Ocean is concerned, while there have been no definitive, I would say, proof that the maritime militia has been operating over here, but you have a large number of the fishing boats, and there's no reason to believe that they're not, acting as eyes and ears for the PLA Navy and providing information what they need over here. They are, IUU fishing, or then you have the survey and research vessels, which are here at any given time. Roughly around 1 or 2 vessels over here, sucking up vast amounts of data, which is all dual use data, which can be used to, enhance submarine operations. So this is, your constant presence of all of these, normalizes these operations with time. So after some time, it becomes routine for them to be over here. So they are doing it. It is being monitored. It is being contested in certain places, and that's the way it goes, I would say. Yeah.
I think we covered a vast area of our multi-domain experience. I would like to take few questions for you all, and the first one is. It is from Mr. Akash Thadani. He says, what about the expeditionary force command structure within the theater commands? This was applied by the Americans with much success during and after World War II. So either Admiral Monty or anybody would like to take these questions?
Okay, let me jump in over here. Am I? Yeah. Is that... See, the US, when they adopted a theaterized structure, they've got global requirements. So they've carved up the entire globe into, into theaters, and each commander is responsible for a certain area. Our requirements are not like that. So our requirements are largely, you've got are certainly regional. You've got unsettled borders, and you've got your maritime area in the Indian Ocean. So the structure that we've adopted is commensurate to what is being proposed, is commensurate to our situation right now, where you basically, insofar as your terrestrial threats are concerned, the thought process is, one front, one commander. If you have a single front that is, let's say, looking at your Western adversary, which is Pakistan, then ideally you should have one commander who can, who has got all the levers that are going to be applied, the military levers I'm talking about. I'm not talking about economic levers or, diplomatic levers, but the military levers that are going to be applied should be under his, he should have control over there so that he can sequence and phase them to apply them in a coherent manner. Insofar as our requirements are not really expeditionary, but certainly in the Indian Ocean, the maritime theater is largely that responsible in that manner. That in case you have an issue, it need not be purely military. It can be an HADR requirement, where you have several for providing, say, maybe aid like a tsunami, where you have all the forces providing certain assets. Someone has to sort of control this entire operation, and the maritime theater commander can do that. Or if there is an incident like you had Operation Cactus, for example, in Maldives, where you had, renegade, attempted takeover of the governance. And again, in these sort of situations, when you go out of country, there has to be some coherence in the way that these operations are conducted. So certainly in the near abroad and in the Indian Ocean, you have a maritime theater, and for your major terrestrial, adversaries, you have integrated theaters. That is what the proposed structure is.
There's another very interesting question by Shritik Kothari, and probably either Jalan Baduria or Group Captain Lele can answer. He asked that, does technology influence and cause a change in domains and ways of war fighting, or is the other way around? War bringing about necessary technological innovation. Is there a fine line?
I think it's both ways. There's a very interesting question. but I think it is both ways, because if you see the Cold War period and the period before that, your entire investment in technologies was done by agencies like DARPA and other agencies, which are essentially defense agencies. So most of the funding used to go over there. And if you see today's computers, internet, GPS, everything has emerged as a military technology. Subsequently, it has made inroads into the civilian domain. But post Cold War, one can say, particularly when economic liberalization started happening, globalization started happening, today more amount of a focus on technology development is happening into a civilian domain. So today, what is happening is that armed forces are saying that okay, there is artificial intelligence type of a technologies which are available. Can we juxtapose it on our own structures? So I think it happens in both ways, one can say. But one thing which I would like to mention over here, that one must understand that technology is just a tool. One should not get carried away totally that oh, technology is just a tool. Like I was making a mention about what happened when Ukrainians have used those drones. Drone is not a very great technology, but they used it very effectively to ensure that almost 40 of the Russian aircrafts are getting destroyed on the ground itself. So it's more than the technology. How you use the technology is very important.
Okay, yes, General Bhaduria.
Here, I would like to add to whatever has been said the role of the technological companies, right? And what comes to mind straight away is the Starlink in Ukraine. So, all these big technological giants will have a role in the warfare, in the way the war is going to be fought, and how it is going to be influencing, even in the outcomes. So, therefore, the corporates will have power and role, particularly in things like space and elsewhere. The other point that I wish to highlight, what has happened in the Ukraine Russia war, is that private companies have now been brought in directly in the process of developing weapons and other innovative means to wage a war. What was happening was it was taking a lot of time to procure things and then send it to the field formation thing and things like that. Over last 3 years, the the formations, the lower formations, in their case, the brigade, can directly deal with a private company and say that, look, I'm fighting the war like this, and I need to get this kind of equipment to do this, maybe some innovation on the drone or something like that. And that private company quickly provides them. Funds are allotted like that. Like, I mean, this is not a very good example to give. Uh, I was there in Sri Lanka for 2 years. We fought that complete action with a very, ad hoc, this thing stitched on our chest for keeping the magazines and all. 2 years since, once we deducted and came to India, the same kind of a kit was developed by the Ordnance Factory Board and sent to us to carry out trials. Now, this was a very laughable kind of a thing. We did everything that we had to do for 2.5 years with ad hoc things, and here we were made to trial test a thing which was, like that. So those are the kind of things which have to be now factored in when the warfare is taking place, because nobody knows whether the war is going to be short or it's going to be long. So those kind of earlier, we could say with a lot of certainty that we'll fight a short and swift war, but now we really
Admiral Khanna, would you like to add something to it? Do you agree what that person was saying about the technology and
Yeah,
warfare?
I would. Yeah, I would agree that it's two ways. Both each drives the other. That certainly, once battles are underway, there is a certain amount of innovation that takes place, and certainly also innovation drives the way you fight battles. So this is a two-way street. Ideally, the preferred solution always is that you prepare earlier so that come battle you're well prepared, and but battlefield innovation also is very important, I would say. So yeah, certainly both drive, each drives the other.
So, one last question, General Bhaduria. It is about the artillery. Artillery is often referred to as the god of the war. So, in Op Sindoor, he wanted to know how exactly has it fared.
uh, right. Artillery duels in Op Sindoor were limited to the line of control, right? So there wasn't much this thing that we did. We only fired at their post. They also fired at our post. But going forward, RT is going to play a very major role like the air defense right now. And we are developing weapons, Pinaka weapon system, which is going to have ranges upwards of 100 and 140, something like that. So if you have a weapon system which can fire up to 140 kilometers or something like that, linked with your ISR and communication, look at the advantage that you'll have. So RT is going to be, and it is already proving in Ukraine war, that it is a very major battle winning factor.
I think we would like to end the podcast here, and we all agree that the character of warfare is changing. There is going to be more multi-domain warfare, space, cyber, information warfare. All these are going to play a major role in the coming years. And I would like to thank Group Captain Ajay Lele, Admiral Montikana, and General Baduria for this podcast. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Thank you.
Thank you, Roshan.